Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for a Watercolour Wednesday. They've decided to chop down some hedges or saw up some wood down below. I hope that's not going to be too annoying because the light is quite good at the moment, and I would like to take the opportunity to swatch some new watercolours. Always exciting. These are from Art to Basic, wonderful handmade watercolours by the lovely Meda, partly from Denmark, partly from Italy. Seems to be in Sweden at the moment because she said that's where she was posting them from. And yeah, this is the little box they come in, so I thought I'd just show you that before I start. This packaging material is seaweed, so that'll go straight on some of my houseplants. That must be another form of paint. Interesting. Anyway, there was a little sale recently on singles at Art to Basic, and I thought I'd take the opportunity to pick out some colours I might not necessarily ordinarily choose. This vivid orange, I'm looking at you, but its name is, if I remember rightly, something like Sunset Spark. And given we made all those sunrises recently, I just thought a bright colour can be amazing. And there is a previous swatching with a colour that was included that I hadn't ordered, and it was a bright pink, and oh my word, I loved it. I'll link to that swatching video below. So yeah, I'm gonna unwrap these. As you can see, they come with their little swatch colours on the top, but there's nothing like trying it for yourself. So I'm going to write the little numbers on with my very fine Sharpie pen so I don't forget what these are. I also usually initial them. Oh, look, numbers already there. Number 90. So yeah, that is Sunset Spark. But what I do also do is put on the initials of the paint company, because I have paints by lots of different people, and should they ever get mixed up, AB, ATB, Art to Basic, same initials as me, Alison Bomber. Great, I'm going to get the rest of those out, and then we'll have a little paint with them, a swatch, and probably a little doodle. So here they are, and I was rather taken with some of the, I guess, urban palette. A lot of these are named for cities. So we've got Toronto, Heaven on Earth, Sunset Spark, Sparkling Mango, Crimson Glow, Rome, and Madrid. So Toronto, Rome, and Madrid from that urban series. If you've never visited the Art to Basic site, do go and have a look and read the descriptions that Meta writes of the paints, because they just have such a poetic story inside each of these colours. She makes them herself, grinding the pigments with a beautiful glass grinder, and creating these extraordinary colours. So I'm going to have a little play just to see what we've got. So as always, I'm going to wet those, let the water just sit in and take hold a little bit. Got a very bog standard sketchbook from quite a cheap source here, just for a first go, and then I've got my nice bamboo paper that I'll have a go at after that. Couple of jars of water so that I can have one to clean and one to pick up colour. I've zoomed in quite a long way, so I'm just going to try and make sure I stay on camera. So this is Toronto, which is just a beautiful grey-green that has, yeah, I mean, look at that. That's a beauty. This is not watercolour paper. It's soaking in right away. It doesn't want to have much movement, but I just want to have a look at these colours. This is Heaven on Earth, and I think as greens go, I think I'm probably going to agree. It's another one with a sort of chalky opacity to it, as opposed to a translucent glow, but that's really quite exciting. Let's take a look at our Sunset Orange, Sunset Spark Orange. This is full on neon looking at it in the pan, but let's see what it does on here. And one of the things that was so exciting to me about the bright pink that turned up was what happened when I mixed it with other colours. So as well as picking out some colours that I might not otherwise have chosen, what I also, oh, wow. So I think this is one thing that I think Meta is really good at are the brights. They just seem to have an internal glow. Oh, look, I'm off camera, see? I knew that would happen. Let's move the whole thing up. My apologies. But you're going to see this again. I'm going to do some mixing. There we go. That's better. You probably were shouting at the screen. Alison, we can't see. There we are. On camera now. Hopefully for the rest of them. What have we got here? Sparkling mango. So this was a really interesting colour to me, because it has that yellow within it. It's got some green. It's got, seems to me, almost a sort of acid mustard tone to it. And I'm really looking forward to mixing those two. So you can see I was also trying to put together a palette that might be quite fun, just as it is. Crimson Glow we've got here. And I think, again, I was thinking sort of sunsets, maybe sunrises. We've been doing lots of pink sunrises, and I figured it was time we got into the oranges. The subtlety of that is just beautiful. It's going to be amazing for rosy paintings in the summer, but it's just got a beauty to it that is quite exceptional. Right, what have we got here? Rome. I'm expecting sort of terracotta from this in a Roman tile kind of way. I'm expecting a terracotta world of, yeah, clay and stone and the dust of the Roman hills. 7 hills around Rome. Look at that. And Madrid. Maybe more of a steely industrial colour. I mean, it's a while since I made the order for these, so I don't remember precisely Meta's descriptions. I'll have to go back and have a look myself, whether that's what she intends with that Madrid one. But I love that. You know I love my greys, and that's a good grey. So just as a little experiment down the side here, I'm going to take a little bit of this Sunset Spark into one of these. So you need, as with all watercolours, you need to let the water and the pigment have time together. Wash that off and get a little bit of the Crimson Glow in the next one along, because I think that's going to give me a subtle sunrise that I think I'm going to quite enjoy. So a little bit of that. As I say, remember, this is not watercolour paper, so the blending is not going to be ideal. Look at the colour that creates together. So this is just mixing on the page. This is letting those two colours have a little play together and create a really rather amazing blush pink. That's very pretty. Let's have a look at another couple of colours. I want to try this Toronto with a little bit of the mango. I think that's going to give me something quite interesting as well. Yeah, beautiful. Sort of, that's a pear. That is definitely a pear coming through there, between an avocado and Toronto. So in Toronto, an avocado. Oh no, not avocado, sparkling mango. Ah, well that's, sorry, my brain was going avocado while it was reading mango. Well, that's why it's got orange within it as well then, because the inside of a mango is orange. My brain. Let's get some of this Roman terracotta, and I want to mix that with, ooh, what? Maybe Heaven on Earth. Let's see what that gets us. Should get us a sort of grey clay. Oh, that is amazing. Again, bear in mind, these are not mixing on watercolour paper, so they're not behaving in an ideal fashion. Again, I'm just getting a little taste for what we can get colour-wise here. Let's go with the Crimson Glow again. So we're doing 2 mixes with the Crimson Glow, and I really want to put in a bit of Madrid just to see how that shapes up. Oh, as a colour, that's pretty magic. These are going to be amazing for florals. Amazing. Look at the colours there. Just wonderful. Going to leave that to dry because obviously watercolours as they dry do shift and change colour. Going to pull out a little bit so I don't forget to constantly stay on camera, and we'll maybe have a little doodle on some slightly better paper. I've had a very quick little experimental floral doodle, really just a couple of daubs, but looking at some of those colours mixing, and it's made me want to do a proper mixing grid just with these 7 colours. What I haven't done, of course, is tried this, this peculiar blue thing that's also in the mix. I don't know. It is paint. Let's have a look at it. I've got some little squares of, I think this is watercolour paper. Looks like watercolour paper. Oh, look at the colour of that. Wow. Okay. Well, maybe you get to join in. Although I am enjoying the non-blueness of this, given that blue is always in my colour mixes. So I might just let that rest at one side for now and come back to it another time. So yes, I will do maybe another little bit of that colour mixing in terms of petals, but I do just want to do a very brief little colour mixing grid on here. So I'm going to have line and row, column and row of each of these, and then just do not a scientific, not a half and half, just a see what I get mixing of these colours that are new to me. Because you need to get the measure of a watercolour. You need to spend some time working out what it'll do, and obviously eventually I need to work these into my main palette of Art to Basic paints. I want to have them lined up with the others, but in the meantime I'm going to let them operate as a palette in and of themselves. You can see I've sort of lined them up in an order that makes sense in my brain. More of an ombre. So the greys working through the greens, to the terracottas, to the full-on. Right, so mixing up a little bit of, I think this is Madrid, isn't it? Madrid with Madrid goes in this corner, and I can go for a much deeper Madrid by adding an extra layer, so it'll tell me what colour I get if I go dark. Now, into this Madrid on the mat, I'm going to mix myself a little bit of Toronto, I think it is, isn't it? And that goes in this square and in this square. And once it's on the paper, I can see whether I've got enough of each colour. So that's quite heavily Toronto. So in at least one of them, I'm going to add a little bit more Madrid to that mix so that I get the variation. Put a little touch more in there. And that tells me as well that Toronto is a colour that's got quite a lot of pigment compared to Madrid that might have a little bit less assertive colour within it. Okay, let's take Madrid and Heaven on Earth this is. Again, I haven't got a very strong Madrid mixed up. Get some more pigment into there and see what that gives us. Oh yes. Oh yes, that's a good grey-green. And on that one, I want to put in a bit more Heaven on Earth. So you can see, you can build your colour layers. This is a very informal process, what I'm doing right now. I just want to get a look at what I've got. So, a bit more Madrid. And we're now on to our sparkling mango, not avocado. Into there. Oh, that's a wonderful yellow-grey. It's got earthiness and presence and a subtlety to it that I really love. And as you can see, this is definitely informal because I can see right now I'm going to end up with some other mixes going on here. There are other colours going to invade. But again, I'm getting a taste for these paints. I'm getting a feeling of what they can get up to together. And of course, Madrid is just going to offer each of them a darker, slightly sulkier version of themselves. There it is. And let's just wipe up here a little bit so that we don't get too much else going on in the mixes as we come to these reds. Let's get a bit of Madrid onto the mat. Crimson Glow. This I know is going to make me happy as a colour. Again, it's quite a watery mix. Let's not get our knickers in a twist about that. I already know I can create real depth of colour with these paints if I spend the time to get the colour coming off the palette. But what it's hinting at here is what you'll be able to mix up in a deeper, darker version as well. But there is something about these watery washes with these particular colours somehow that is doing something rather nice to my brain. Okay, and finally, Madrid and some of this extraordinary neon sunset spark. Let's get that in there. Really pretty. Adding a bit more so that this mix goes down in a slightly different colour. That as a grey is so delightful. So that's it with a bit more Madrid in the mix. That's it with a bit more of the sunset spark in the mix. I love these as a collection already. Already I do. Right, so you can see the process for that. I'm going to carry on. Well, I don't know. I'll, excuse me, I'll keep the camera on and then I'll see, see whether we include it in the long run. So we're into Toronto, mixing up Torontos. Already done it with Madrid, of course, so there's no need to go back over that. So we get some Heaven on Earth into this end. Oh, Toronto I haven't done. This is Toronto plus Heaven on Earth. Pick up a bit more of that Toronto to go into this spot. So that you get two very subtly different greens immediately. Let's get some full-on Toronto into this space. I need to give them another spritz of water, really. Oh, that as a colour, just by itself, is doing something deeply gorgeous to my brain. Nice. Okay, Toronto plus Mango. Oh, that's gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous. A chalky, greeny grey yellow. I can't, it's got all of that in it. Toronto plus Rome. This is going to be interesting. Terracotta meets grey. Green grey. Breathtaking. That chalky terracotta in an autumn landscape for leaves. It's exactly that moment when a leaf starts to go from its colour change into almost decay and starts to lose colour. Real melancholy to that. Okay, Toronto plus Crimson Glow. This again should take us somewhere greyish. Pale Damson. That's just a beautiful grey blush. Enjoying that a lot. Okay, Toronto, what can you do with Sunset Spark? Let's put it here. Grab some Sunset Spark into there. That's going to need some more Toronto in the mix. It's given us a slight chalkiness to the neon, but I want to put a bit more of the, yeah, there it is. I don't even know what colour that is. Okay. Fascinating. It's staying, it's not fully blending. I should have mixed it more on the mat. But that's, as I say, fascinating. I love how the orange particles are kind of making their way to the edges. It does give a granulating effect. Interesting. Okay, paint up. That's your Torontos. So we now get to Heaven on Earth. And you can see the grid is going to get quicker because each colour just needs to be mixed with fewer things. Here's Heaven on Earth with Heaven on Earth meeting in the middle, just getting me that lovely double Heaven on Earth, slightly more intense colour. And let's mix up a little bit on the mat here. Try and control the water. Controlling water content is the absolute key to, if you want to get a stronger mix. If you're watery, you're always going to get a pastel look. And again, I could be being more defined about this and making sure that the columns are always heavier on this colour and the rows are always heavier on this colour, so that you do get those two different shades of olivey green there. Both good shades of green. Where are we at? Heaven on Earth, now mixed with Rome. Let's get that in there. Maybe a little bit more of the green, drying off the brush in between now so that I can create a bit more depth of colour. Again, just a fascinating shift of colour on that. Let's pick up a bit more Rome for the second version. And again, it is saying leafiness to me. It's saying end of autumn leaves. Really gorgeous. Where are we on? We're still on Heaven on Earth. And we're getting to Crimson Glow, which again could be interesting. Let's wipe that off. I said I was going to give these another spritz of water, didn't I? Let's have a look at you. I'm loving everything that Crimson Glow is mixing up. It's creating real subtle tones of beauty. That one's quite a brownish, so if you add a bit more green, you get a bit more rusty brown. Lovely. Lovely. Okay, let's see what happens. Here's Heaven on Earth. And here's our Sunset Spark. A bit more Heaven on Earth. That's a fascinating green grey as well. A bit more Sunset Spark for the other one. Interesting. So the colours that are mixing up down here do have that sunset glow, sunset spark within them. They do have a sort of vividness. So everything you mix with that sunset spark does get a slightly more vivid version of itself, kind of the opposite of Madrid, which gives you a shadow version of each colour, a sort of grey version of each colour. The Sunset Spark has always got a bit of oomph about it, a bit of energy. Okay, Mango, you're up. Let's mix up a little bit more Mango. So Mango, where those meet, we're going to get ourselves a nice solid version of the Mango. Wow, look at that. It's really interesting. So it's kind of got the skin of a mango in, and the flesh of a mango in one go. So let's have mango and Rome. This is going to be nice. And I can really imagine a mango. I can really imagine a mango with a little bit of this neon dropped in to give you the mango itself. What are we doing? Rome plus mango. Let's have a look at that. That's an amazing colour. It's got I would call that a melancholy brown. Interesting. Bit more mango. And in with the crimson. Bit more mango. Love that. Love that. That's a kind of gentle port wine. Mango. Mango, mango. Plus, here it is. Sunset Spark. I'm also really looking forward to mixing that Sunset Spark with some pinks for some sunrises and sunsets. Nice, let's get a bit more of the mango in. See, this, I said this contains some orange, didn't I, this mango? And it really does, because that has stayed quite orange, despite mixing it with a green. I thought I could feel orange underlying that green mango. Fascinating. Okay, Rome, you're up. Let's take a trip to Italy. Here comes Rome. And the only ones I need to mix it with, of course, because I've mixed it with everything else. Oh no, we need some Rome. Let's have some Rome first of all. Rome meets Rome, gives us Rome. Again, that strong terracotta is magic. Rome plus Crimson Glow. So pretty. Bit more Rome in the second mix. All these Crimson Glow colours make me want to paint roses. It's about time. So many roses in the garden, and I've always fought a little bit shy of roses in the craft room, roses in the artwork, but I think 2026 might be the year. There's a wonderful marigold to that. That's a wonderful, more of a sort of burnt orange is what that gives you, the terracotta plus the sunset glow. And then let's give ourselves a nice strong bit of Crimson Glow plus Crimson Glow. Going to really work that into the brush's bristles. Get myself the full-on beauty of Crimson Glow as Crimson Glow. It is gorgeous. And then let's mix our Crimson Glow. We already know this has got extraordinary colour potential. The Crimson Glow plus the Sunset Spark. Such an exciting pink. Oh, what have I done? La, la. Yes, that's correct. Sorry. Panic moment. I've got another hole left. Yes, of course I have, because I've got Sunset Spark all by itself. I don't usually do this process while I'm chattering out loud, the mixing grids. There are a couple of mixing grids around on the channel, but for the most part, for the mixing grid, it's quite good to keep your focus rather than talk out loud to the camera. Wow, what a finale. What a finale that is. I'm trying to hold it in the light so that you get a fair look at those colours. Angle it to the window. There's a window that side as well, but it's further away. Grand. I'm just wondering, I don't think I can make the shape of a mango. I don't know. Let's see. Let's go for a slight mango affair. So just a sort of ellipse. And I'm just going to call that a patch of colour, not an actual mango. And then I'm going to drop in some of this sparkling mango. I'm really sorry about the... I had hoped they would stop by now, but they haven't. I think my mango is going to be slightly unripe, so I'm going to drop in some Heaven on Earth as well. Keeping some light at the centre of things. That's kind of mango shaped, isn't it? They have a sort of dull end and a... And then let's drop a little bit of this sunset spark in at the top end. And maybe a little bit of the... What do we reckon? Mango? A little bit more of the actual mango, maybe. Around that top end. Once that's dried, I might add a little bit of shadow and shading. Just going to let those colours dance on there. And a little bit more of the green. If I had my other paints out, I'd probably go with some more colours to get myself a little bit more mango-y. But I think that'll do for now. Let's see, we'll add another layer of colour. So what I was doing to create those little flower doodles, I just put little tiny dots of our sunset spark at the centre of things. And then I took a little bit of the crimson glow just onto the whole flower petal, onto more of the brush bristles. There we go. Just press those down, and then you can add in a little bit more colour to just spread out into those. Very simple little flower shape. Let's get a little more water on the next one so they can move. Little dots of central colour. A little bit of flow in the paint. Little flower petals. And that's really the brush doing that work. I'll drop a little bit more of this into the centre so that can mix in. And then, yeah, I was just taking a little bit of the green. Let's pull down a little green stem. A little bit of dark in there. Oh, that really, the surface of that has dried, so I need to add in some water. Let's put a couple of darks right at the centre. That's nice. Let's do it the other way around this time. So I'm going to put some water down in some vague petal shapes. Get some water on the... That's a bit too much water, so I'll just pick it up with a slightly drier brush. And then I'm going to drop in some sunset spark into those watery shapes. That's interesting. So this is the bamboo paper, and it's not kind of spreading in the way that I would expect if I were doing that on a piece of Arches paper, but then I'm just going to add in some little sweeps of colour. A little bit of green somewhere in the centre. Pull down a little green stem. Maybe add a little terracotta flower. he is. And then to that, add some crimson to the petal edges. That's giving me something quite nice. Quite enjoying that. So it's just having a little doodle, having a little play, throwing in some colour. I like the Madrid at the centre of that, that's nice. Let's pull down a little stem that is part Madrid, part Heaven on Earth. Bit of leafiness, bit of leafy playtime, a little bit of Toronto in those leaves. That's a gorgeous colour. Might go for a bit of a wedge. So this is a flat brush, it just gets you different kinds of brush strokes. So again, just play with those different possibilities. So if I'm doing a leaf with this, it immediately gets you that angle on the leaf. Let's put in a bit of mango down here, maybe a bit of mango into there. And I don't need to complete that with any paint, I could just complete that with water, but I just want to put in a bit of colour. Right, I'm going back in with a bit more mango depth. Great. So the next layer of colour, it's not quite dry, so it's still doing a bit of wet in wet mixing, and that's going to get us some blooms, but I sort of don't care at the moment. I'm just doodling. So this is not about perfect watercolour painting. I'm not terribly interested in trying to do perfect watercolour painting anyway. I want to play with my colours and see what I've got. Some green around this edge. That's my mango. Here's a mango. Needs a shadow. Shadow wants to lie. Let's get some Madrid shadow. And another little game to play is to have a little bit of the colour of the object also in that shadow. I need to look at a picture. I need a mango in front of me now to work out where the shadow needs to go. I just want to get it grounded a little bit. So I'll give it a surface to sit on. It needs a horizon line. Pop in the darks, and I really like that that's running into there. I sort of need a bit of blue in that shadow, don't I? I like that that's running into there. I like that that's running into there. That's all good. It's a doodle. I want a little bit of dark somewhere to show that there's a dip up here. Yeah, not wild about this mango. Not mad about it as a painting. It's a good little experiment in how these colours want to play on the paper. It's still an experiment with the paper because I've only used this bamboo paper a couple of times. But look at that. Okay, so look at that, how that colour is moving into places. That is quite fun to see. Grand. So that's a little first time playtime with some new paints. I'm going to leave you in peace now. I'll run in for a little close up so you can have a look at the doodle swatches, the mixing blend, these little flower doodles. Just a way to start out when you've got some new paints and give yourself a chance to find out what they're capable of. In terms of mixing, in terms of blends. I do like a little bit of grassy flicking. Mango, not so much. maybe with some more darks I could tackle that mango. I don't think a mango is a very easy thing to paint, really. Wondering. No, I'm not going to get into the blue. The blue's for another day. That was the blue. I mean, look at that. wonder what happens if we put a touch more depth of colour right in there. This block of blue, look at the size of that. It's beautiful. And I bet you can you apply it direct as well? Yeah, scrape it onto some textured paper. Yeah, look, so that for mixed media is great. It's like a kind of watercolour chalk. Brilliant. Anyway, I'm going to go away now and come back later and see if I still hate the mango. Thanks so much for your company, everybody. If you've got comments or questions, leave them down below. I will list these colours and give you a link to the Art to Basic website. And yeah, as I say, do go and read the descriptions. They're a joy. Thanks so much for your company and happy crafting all.